Hey everybody, welcome to our live stream. We will start in about 4 minutes. We'll kick this off. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat window, and we'll answer them throughout today's presentation. Hey everybody, welcome to our first YouTube live stream for Indigo Design. We're going to do this weekly, which means every week we'll do a new topic. We'll talk about Indigo Design, discuss challenges you might have with building applications and how we can help. And we're going to mix it up. We'll always have a 5 p.m. show, but we'll also have time zone friendly shows for Asia, India, and Europe. So we hope you join us, and looking forward to giving you a little bit more exposure to what the product does and how it can help you. So what I'm going to do today is a high-level overview of Indigo Design App Builder. App Builder is a tool which really accelerates your application design. The way you get to the App Builder homepage is if I go to infragistics.com. I go to Indigo Design App Builder, click the link, and here we are at the App Builder home. Our whole story is around designing and building apps blazing fast. So one of the challenges that every developer runs into is the UI. So we need the help of visual designers, design experts, UX people, just the kind of resource that is good at layout. They're good at theming and coloring, and they kind of make the app look beautiful. Well, with App Builder, we let you as the developer take that responsibility into your own hands. So it's a cloud-based WYSIWYG drag and drop tool, just like think of Visual Studio, Visual Basic, where you got a toolbox, you got a bunch of controls, and you drag and drop onto your design surface, and you can start cobbling out applications. If you go through the homepage, there's a bunch of product promises that we make. We say build apps up to 10 times faster. It's actually more than that. I mean, it could be 100 times faster if you're doing a complex layout. We just did a project internally. One of my coworkers, Brian Lagunas, who's moderating the chat today, and he actually did this beautiful application in about a day, which would have taken him a lot longer to do without using the tools inside of App Builder. In fact, I think he did it in a few hours. And of course, we did involve visual design for a little bit of theming help, but that's just because Brian, he's really not that good at colors and things like that. So it really does accelerate that whole experience of going from your idea into something that is a real app. It's 100% cloud-based. You don't have to install anything on the client. The nice thing is we have included a bunch of templates and starter layouts. I'm going to show you those today. And then you can do an instant real-time preview, which means not only can you preview your application, but you can also get real live code, Angular code, from whatever you're building. So we've done this with a design system, which has a UI kit, and those UI kits then translate into what's in the toolbox, into real components that are in our Angular component set, and it makes it super easy for you to make all of this happen. And yeah, Brian says he's a dev, not a designer. Trust me, we know. Thank you, Brian. But this is the real exciting thing, is you can go right from your idea into code. And we allow you to do that in a couple ways. One is you can download your code, or the second way is you can actually synchronize your code in GitHub, or you can create a new repo, merge that code into your repo, or you can have an existing repo with code already in there, and you're kind of synchronizing these with pull requests, and then you can merge those changes into your application. So it's pretty exciting. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and sign in to App Builder. Now, I have already signed in before, so I'm being launched directly into a project that I was working on. But if you log into Indigo Design for the first time, where you're going to end up at is this sort of workbench screen where you've got 3 tabs across the top. One of them says prototypes, one says usability tests, and one says apps. Indigo Design is a complete digital product design platform. So you've got all these aspects that help designers and developers collaborate on application development, share prototypes. You can actually share prototypes with stakeholders. They can run them on their devices or local machine. You can do usability studies and all that. But for this series of videos, we're really just going to focus on App Builder and what App Builder will actually help you with. So what I'm going to do is I'm on my Apps tab. The first thing you want to do is click View Sample Apps. And you're going to be prompted with several samples that we ship with the product. So let's go ahead and just try the team collaboration sample. So these are full end-to-end applications. We've already done all the work for you, and they are the best way to get started. Once you get into the application, you've got a couple helper pop-ups here. So watch video tutorials, view the help docs, or send us feedback. So we want to hear your feedback. This product's for you. It's not for me, it's for you. So we want to make sure that whatever we're putting in the product is helping you accelerate your app dev. Let's go through this IDE really quick. Over on the left, you're going to notice I've got my master view, and then I've got a few child pages. what the app builder does is it builds single page applications. Today, it builds single page applications in Angular. What we're working on and going to ship in the next couple months is single page applications for Blazor and for React. So you'll be able to choose one of the top 3 frameworks. You don't have to decide that, I need to pick like, oh, we need to build an Angular app. No, if you're doing Blazor, that's amazing. Just use App Builder and then generate Blazor code. If you're doing React, use App Builder, generate React code. Nothing is different in your IDE. So I've got my master view, which is my home. You can see the little home icon. And then I've got these sub pages. On the left-hand side, continuing on, I've got a toolbox full of UI controls. And yes, these are just like you would do with, Visual Basic or any other WYSIWYG tool. I can drag and drop them onto the design surface. Once I do that, the item or the component is selected, and then I have a property editor for that component. And if you've ever used a tool like a design tool, let's say you're a designer or a developer that's familiar with Adobe or Sketch or Figma or tools like that, this property editor is very similar to that layout. So there's a lot of layout settings. So I can do height, width, set different properties on the control, different spacing between elements. I have different positioning strategies. So I've got absolute, relative, fixed, sticky. And then I've got this ability to repeat with a data bound calendar. So you can see I've got a little shadow there, and I can select a data source, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the calendar itself has a few properties that I can set on what the default value is, what day I want it to start on, and what type of calendar this is. So you've got a few options here for the way you want your calendar to look. But you can see now I don't want the calendar. I just hit the delete key. It's gone. This is a drag and drop WYSIWYG. But because we're building web layout, you also can view the DOM layout here as well. So you can see here, I've got all of the components that are laid out on the screen, and this is the layout that they're in. The nice thing about this is you'll notice here I can drag and drop and change the location of items within my DOM layout, or of course I can do that right within the IDE itself. So there's a bunch of options here for how you interact with the DOM and the layout, but think of any IDE that's WYSIWYG drag and drop, and that's what App Builder does. The next thing we'll look at here is our data binding. So with App Builder, you have the ability to bind data sources. Today, we have the ability to bind REST APIs, which means that anything that is a JSON or an OData format, you can give it a name, you can upload the file, or you can add a URL. Now, a lot of us, and you'll see here if I close this, a lot of us use Excel. So here it says Excel file, CSV file. One of the neat things that we're working on, and in fact, we're almost really close to publishing this, is a tool that helps you convert your Excel files into JSON files. So we've got a new utility here. And let's say, for example, I'm just going to start typing in the UI here. So I'll say, name, age, and let's say it's Brian and Jason. And what will happen then is on the right-hand side, you're going to, I actually typed that wrong. But on the right-hand side, you're going to get a JSON file that you can get a link for or download. So even if you want to have some test data, some test schema data, this is just a super slick way that will let you create a data source that you can use right within the app builder. So though that's coming soon, we're probably going to publish that in the next week or so. Brian is just finishing it up today with a Docker container, and we want to have it high availability. So he's done a lot of work there. But let's go ahead and just show some of these screens. So here, if I just name my data source, I'll leave it here. You can do a description. I want to add a URL, either get or post, or I can upload a JSON file. Now, once you do that, what you end up with is data in the data window on the left-hand side. So I've got a few data sources added here. We've got Northwind. We've got data sources for one of the samples called Travel App. But the idea is that the prototype or the app you're building isn't very meaningful unless you have data that is meaningful as well. So I want to make sure that when I'm showing stuff in my application, that the data is actually something that would make sense to what I'm going to generate on the output. So it's actually pretty exciting. And then finally, if I go over to themes, we ship with a bunch of default themes. We have, I think it's 6 total default theme sets. So watch what happens if I click Roboto. We're changing not only the color, but font. We're changing roundness to squareness. And watch the button here on the lower right. As I change to the different types of styles, it'll look slightly different. You know, now I have a round button when I use Material Dark, because Material UI is going to be different than a Fluent light theme or a Bootstrap light theme. Now let's say that I want to create my own custom theme. We have this plus button here which says new theme. I'm going to call this custom 1. And I want to base this off of Fluent. I really like Fluent, but I want to tweak the colors a little bit. So what you can do is go in here and start tweaking the colors so they map to something that maybe is more desirable to your branding. So we actually let you completely change the way your application looks and feels using color, using typography. So let's change this to Open Sans. Let's change the roundness. This was based on Fluent. So let's go over to a more round theme. And then for the elevations, I want this to be elevated buttons and whatnot. I'll click Save. And just like that, you can see I've got my custom theme here. And it is the active theme. You'll see how everything's changed in the UI. And if I go back to these screens, here's my tasks. Here's the master view. It looks beautiful. It looks stunning. And who wouldn't want something to look like that? Now, when it comes to color and theme, you can still override various aspects of the application. So it's not like you're stuck with this theme, based on a page or based on maybe some logic that you want to change the way something looks. Absolutely, no problem. So maybe on this page, I want my background to be a little bit lighter, and I want this entire background to be a little bit darker, like so. So now it's going to look different than my default theme. But you get the idea. You have complete control over what your application looks like, either by creating a new custom theme or overriding individual UI components through the property editor. Now, if I go back to the theme, you'll notice here, I can switch between my custom themes and my default themes, and I can then easily just go back to my default themes, and I want to go back to the Roboto theme. It's what I like, it's what I want, and now it's going to apply that to the application. Now, this is an app builder, so everything that you see here was sort of dragged onto the screen. We added properties, added text, set titles, subtitles, etc. It probably took one of the guys maybe a few hours to create this. But what can you actually do with it? So let's go ahead and hit the preview button. And now I'm actually in the application. So here, if you look, I'm actually in a real app. And if I have different screens that I want to show, I can click those screens. So we had a dashboard view and I had my home page. And you can see what this looks like as I click back and forth. Now, let me go back here to my browser, maybe make it a little bit smaller. And I want to show you the real magic here is the code view. So the code view is the generated Angular application that you get by using the app builder. So you're getting real production quality code out of anything that gets designed in the app builder. And what you can do here is if I switch between the different screens, you can see what that code looks like. There's real links to images online. And in this particular sample, we don't have data binding. I'm going to show you data binding in another sample so you can actually see what it looks like. But we're going to make this into real code that you can output. Now, what's even cooler, if I go back to edit, I said that you can download code or you can generate the app via GitHub. I'm going to go ahead and download this zip file. It's generating it all on the server, and it'll initiate the download here through Edge in a second here. Streaming takes up a little bit of my bandwidth. So now I've got my team collaboration zip file. Let's go ahead and I'm going to copy this guy here, and I'm going to go to my C drive. I'm going to go here into this sample. Let's paste this. I'm going to unzip this, export to team collaboration. I've got team collaboration. Now let me open this up with Visual Studio Code, and there is no smoke and mirrors here. This is the app. I've got my HTML, I've got my CSS, and I've got my code behind. I've got all of the routing set up. I've got all of the things that I need to actually make this a real application. So this is the beauty of it. If I did npm install, npm start, you would see the whole app running. This is where you're saving that 10x to 50x of time just getting basic stuff done. Like, hey, I looked at one of Infragistics samples for App Builder. It's kind of like what I want to build. Let me just go add my own data to it, or let me tweak it a little bit. Or even better, if I do a new app from here, you can see that I can just pick from a default layout. So maybe I just want a header and left nav layout. So we are going to create a new project that is a header and a left nav. So now if I run this guy, you can see here, this is what your typical app would look like. I've got some screens, content 1, content 2, content 3. All this is done for you. So if I go to my pages, I've got a master view with a few child views. Now I can start, dragging and dropping controls. There's a nice trick to this here. Let me go back to view 1. And I'm going to go to my my toolbox here. Let's just type in grid. So we've got grid here, but if I do a control E, it pops up this quick search, and I can type in grid, select grid, and actually let me get rid of this content view. I'm going to go ahead and make this grid bigger, take up the page, and you'll notice that there's some data in the grid, but the grid can be data bound. So I have a bunch of different data sources here. Let me go ahead and bind this to customers. And so you'll see here, we've got the customers data in the grid. Let me preview this app, and you'll see that I've got my customers grid here, no problem. And you'll see the Angular code that it generated. And you'll also notice that it didn't auto-generate columns for me. It's actually doing custom columns based on a complex object bound to the control. And if I look at the TypeScript, you can see that we've got function calls that'll actually call a data service. And then that data service, which is part of the app that you would download, is providing me all of the data for my application. So this is where you can also learn how to use Angular. Like, hey, I don't know how to do a data service. I don't know how to do a binding. Best practices are built into this. So you can start using this immediately, and you can get to success pretty quickly. Now let me go to another application. So I'm just going to do new app. And by the way, you can see me jumping around here. Just go to infragistics.com, select App Builder from the main menu, and do the same thing that I'm doing. Like, just go ahead and start trying samples, start dragging stuff on, see what you can do, see how you can explore and learn with the product. But you'll notice here, and this is where it gets interesting, you'll notice I got some card views on the top. Now these card views, if I look in my DOM, these are individual cards, right? Right there. Now I've got this control here, and these cards are actually grayed out. Why are they grayed out? Because they're data bound. So you can see here, this is a complex control, a card view. It's sort of like a grid. There's a lot you can do with it. But you'll notice that I have it bound to the article source. I want to show 3 data items, and then I'm doing data binding here. So I can link into the properties of my data source, and it automatically binds it. So now this is the articles page. Let's go to preview, and I want to show you the code here. So if you are an Angular developer, you are familiar with what's happening here. We've got an ng4 let item of travel app article source 1, and it's looping through travel app article source 1, binding the data. And so if I download this app, all the data binding there is done for me. So we've got ng4 across all these components, and the data binding is happening. So this is where you get into that real world code. Single page applications are calling URLs for OData, for JSON. They're not like doing a data set like you would in ASP.NET or Windows Forms. They're actually connecting to the web. You're pulling data in, and then you're using that data. So what we're doing is we're setting you up for that level of success of real code that's generated that works perfectly on data sources that are in the cloud. And then the fact that you can add your own data source. So here I go back to my data sources. I can add my own. And then, fast forward a week or two, you're going to be able to use this app. And actually, Brian is going to kill me if I don't show something real here. Let me go and find really quick on my hard drive a real sample, because I think you're going to be blown away by this thing. Let me go to here. Hold on. You'll see this in a second. Downloads. Let's see. Is that one? Desktop, new folder. Sorry for the delay. I just want to make sure that I'm opening a file that is not showing you like, my salary. Open, browse, desktop, this guy here. Yep. Okay, cool. So this is one that's a good one. So let me go to, and this actually has a bunch of, this is actually a real data source we use for one of our sample BI products. So let me open this guy up. And you can see, using our trusty Excel library, we've got a bunch of data here. And let me go ahead and see what I can see. Yeah, here's a good one. Website traffic breakdown. And then what happens is, based on the table that you select, you're actually getting the JSON here on the right-hand side. And then I can get a link for this, and then I can use this right inside of App Builder. It's amazingly cool, and it allows you now to use real data with your real schemas and whatever you want inside of the Indigo App Builder to bind to your own app. So this way you're not even worried about, oh, gee, should I use this fake Northwind data, or can I actually use something that's meaningful to the code generation that's going to be generated? So there's so many of these data sources out there, but we want you to be able to use your own data as well. So very slick. So how do you try this? How do you get started yourself? What you should do is go to infragistics.com, go to design and development, go to the app builder link right on the main dropdown. So it says Indigo Design App Builder. Once you're here, you click sign in. And there's 3 ways to sign in, or 4 ways: Office 365, Apple or Google, or your Infragistics ID. Once you log in, you will end up being inside of the App Builder product. You'll be here. You'll see your apps. And what I recommend you do, and in fact, I'll re-show you this. Let me archive these 3 real quick. You'll end up here. And so go ahead and view the sample apps, or do a new app yourself. And at that point, you are ready to get going. So with that, we're going to close out the talk here. So wait a minute. Let me look at a question. Do you have a sample on binding a JSON response from an API web point? So yeah, that's basically what I showed here. This travel app here, what you would do is your API endpoint, and the question may have been answered just in the demo. All you do is, add your URL. So whatever your URL is, then that's your endpoint. Your data is going to come in, and then you can rename it. You can rename your fields. and you'll see everything that you have in your JSON data source, your endpoint. Now, before I let everyone go, I want to highlight a couple other things here. If you go over back to the Infragistics homepage and you go to Learn and Support, we actually have webinars, and we have a bunch of webinars coming up. There's one next week on integrating App Builder with GitHub. You can register for that webinar, but at the same time, we're going to be doing these live streams as well. So you'll end up getting a well-rounded view of the product by either going to a webinar or by continuing to participate in the live streams. Right now, we're just going to continue the live streams at the same time every Tuesday for this time zone. And then we'll do others, like I said, for Europe and Asia that are more friendly. So, Diego, looks like you got it. And we actually have a webinar in like 4 weeks, which is really going to go into data binding a little bit more. And Brian says, yeah, it looks like I feature request. Sorry for butchering your demo, Brian, but it was on the fly. I'll do better next time, I promise. All right, with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And go to infragistics.com, either go to webinars or App Builder, and we hope to see you on the next live stream. Thank you.